Hi guys, welcome to Politics Cafe. As you know, Roe v. Wade has been overturned, leading to protest and strife throughout the nation. Pictured here are the 6 judges who made the ruling, all of whom nominated by Republican presidents, all of whom put forth by an organization called the Federalist Society. The Federalist Society is designed to feed far-right judges to Republican presidents who will nominate them and put them on the court. And finally, they have a majority of them. The question for us today, though, is not what has happened, but how we got here. What were the events that led us to this point? For that, we must go back to Robert Bork. Robert Bork was a failed Supreme Court nominee in 1987, particularly for his extreme far-right views. But how does a failed nomination help us explain what has happened today? Even though Bork's nomination failed, now we have 6 judges exactly like him on the court. How did this happen? We have to go back and examine his nomination process. President Reagan nominated Bork to the court in 1987, but for him to sit on the court, he had to win approval by the United States Senate. Bork was considered extreme for his time. He did not believe that Roe v. Wade had been correctly decided. He did not agree with many of the civil rights progress that had occurred throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He did not believe that the Constitution could be expanded to include groups of individuals that were not included in it when it was written in the 1700s. For this reason, his nomination drew quick condemnation and quick scrutiny from the Democratic-controlled Senate. The criticism of Bork's views culminated in his confirmation hearings, led by who is now President Biden and Senator Ted Kennedy, brother of the late President John F. Kennedy. As the Democrats were in control, it would be very hard for Bork to be nominated if they were not on board. And Ted Kennedy very much led the fight to defeat Bork's nomination, which can be summarized in a famous quote from the senator.
In Robert Bork's America, there is no room at the inn for blacks, and no place in the Constitution for women. And in our America, there should be no seat on the Supreme Court for Robert Bork.
And Senator Kennedy would reiterate these views during the debate on the Senate floor.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions. Blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters. Rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government. And the doors of the federal courts would be shut on the fingers of millions of citizens for whom the judiciary is and is often the only protector of the individual rights that are the heart of our democracy.
These famous takedowns of Bork by Senator Kennedy very much signaled to his colleagues to vote against his nomination. And here is the result. 40 Republicans do vote for Bork, along with 2 conservative Southern Democrats. However, the opposition to Bork's nomination was overwhelming. The vast majority of Democrats voted against him, joined by 6 Republicans. Therefore, his nomination was rejected. What transpired with Bork's nomination process was unprecedented for its time. Ronald Reagan had been elected with over 50% of the vote, and he had won every single state except Minnesota. So the idea that even a Senate controlled by the opposing party would have the political capital to defeat his nominee was quite surprising. And it speaks to the extreme nature of Bork's nomination. Of course, after this, President Reagan still had the authority to nominate a successor to the Supreme Court. He would end up choosing Anthony Kennedy, who of course has no relation to President Kennedy or Ted Kennedy. And Kennedy was very much in the mold of a judge from the 1970s. He was considered politically moderate. He did not have strong views on social issues and was considered impartial and persuadable on controversial topics like same-sex marriage and abortion. And many conservatives would be very frustrated with Kennedy's time on the court. He would be confirmed 97-0, so he was not a controversial nominee like Bork, but he would also not vote the way conservatives wanted. He would vote numerous times to uphold Roe v. Wade during his tenure, and he would author the 2015 decision on same-sex marriage. So his nomination was largely considered a failure by many Republicans, and they sought for what happened with Bork, allowing Kennedy to eventually get on the court, to never happen again. So what happened to Bork himself? Of course, Bork did not go away. He would never sit on the court, but he remained active in American political life and American jurisprudence. He would write numerous books, continuing to espouse his far-right views, and he would be active in the organization on the right, pictured on the right, the Federalist Society. And the Federalist Society was formed in the 80s by Republicans with the explicit goal of putting far-right judges on the court that would eventually vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. And their view came to be that we need to put judges in the mold of Robert Bork on the court. Even though his nomination failed, later on, we can still get judges like him to form a majority. And that is exactly what happened. The 6 judges here, nominated by Republican presidents, currently sitting on the court, all come from the Federalist Society and were all heavily influenced by the ideas and views of Robert Bork. So even though his nomination failed, we now have 6 judges just like him forming the absolute majority on the Supreme Court. First was Thomas, then Alito, and the 3 Trump judges that were nominated during the last 4 years. And these 5 individuals formed the majority that overturned Roe v. Wade, with the final one, Roberts, being slightly more moderate, only voting to restrict the number of weeks Roe v. Wade allowed rather than overturning it altogether. But it doesn't matter, they have 5 votes and they can defeat any type of opposition from the liberals and moderate wing of the court. And that's how we got here. So that's all I have for you today. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Until next time, thank you.